Today we're spectating a subscriber's gameplay in Warzone, and we're going to be reviewing their game sense improvement. I want to highlight their decisions across the entire game and show you guys how I evaluate both my own gameplay as well as others in the coaching program. I chose this particular gameplay submission because I felt that it touched on a lot of decision-making tactics from our videos. So if you love premium Warzone tips and tricks, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. Part of landing on an aggressive player is learning about numbers and where they're facing. And if you can catch an enemy off guard on the roof and you're aware of the pistol that you land in with, you can absolutely surprise somebody. And the Grakova is a great drop pistol that you can use like an SMG because it has 20 rounds of automatic fire. Instantaneously picking up the SMG, which is the gun game mechanic that I always talk about using, you are continually replacing that magazine by then picking up a new weapon. The more efficient you are at doing that, the better you will be about taking out multiple enemies without having to reload, especially in the early game. The time to loadout is one of the largest skills that newer players have a hard time perfecting. And the goal that I give most people is 2 minutes. And that's from the time that your feet hit the ground to the time that you're at a buy station. You should be able to get a loadout within 2 minutes of looting and communicating. Now, sometimes you're going to have to do that by yourself because you don't have teammates that have mics or people you played with before. But it is very important that you get that going as soon as possible because we want our loadout guns. Once you get that loadout, where are you throwing it? I see that a lot where players will purchase the box and then drop it directly at the buy station. What that does gives players the audio cue and the red smoke for them to look directly at the buy station. And here at living quarters, there's almost no cover for that to happen. So they're throwing that over there to red building, but they are cautious of the remaining players from the first enemy that they killed. We talk a lot about hot zones in my videos, which is where we're going to be looking when we are defending ourselves. And looking at this window and listening to the audio cue of them being in wood is a fantastic example of them taking care of the threat as they're pushing the loadout. They were not reckless with the pursuit of their loadout. They were pulling back and defending their position and then getting the best possible angle to reset the fight, and then continuing to use their ground loot to take out the enemy. Now, once you get a visual or an audio cue like a vehicle on your radar, it is good to use your loadout as an actual piece of cover. In other words, standing on the opposite side of where that threat is from and using the box to protect yourself while you get that loadout. May seem like a very common sense tip, but a lot of people will just go to the closest area and then they're caught trying to get their loadout. Now, the next thing that people struggle with is getting information after they get that loadout. And that is the next step, is once you cleared a team, you've bought your weapons, it's time to get back to that buy station. Playing cautious and utilizing things like smoke to help give you a natural blind when you're visiting buys that are not safe, give you the best possible outcome there. Going straight for that UAV and then coordinating your push together as a team. Using your pings and using your verbal comms to notate to your team where you're moving to next. We want to have a coordinated push. I will often talk about not waiting for players to push you. And what that means is when you have information and they have information, it is time to be aggressive. And what I see here that is absolutely phenomenal is after you break somebody, we're sliding through the door and we're creating that momentum to assist in the rotational aim assist. When you stay in the same room and you're giving your enemy that known position and you're leaving that information for them to react to, they're going to flank out the window, they're going to pull around to the outside, and then they're going to shoot you in the ears. So be the aggressive player, push forward, and use aim and movement to get on target. Getting that last ping off the UAV before you lose it helps you coordinate to the following push. And pushing towards dots is a completely fine tactic to do as long as you're doing it as smart as possible. Gathering the information from the zoomed out minimap gives you the ability to make rotations when you don't have dots. So the more of that information that you can log, the more you can push when you don't have the information a few moments later. But your teammates are getting re-engaged and you need to be aware of the threat level at all times. I really like the fact that they disengaged from the stronghold hold and then refocused their attention on their teammate that just went down. using the cover, strafing through that cover to get a clear line of sight on a teammate that's still getting their loadout. And that's why I really like the 2-minute mark, is if you're getting your loadout before the free one comes, you're giving yourself a clear tactical advantage over the rest. Visualizing targets' movement is a game sense tactic, and all it simply means is that you're starting to predict based on the direction that they're headed, which is very important when you are doing cutoff routes. In other words, if you're seeing an enemy move left, instead of chasing them forward and then banking left in their same path, we want to cut that route short by moving the shortest distance to where they're going to be. Once you do that, you want to effectively be ready for their reaction, because they're panicking, they're pushing, they're going to try and break your camera. So the biggest thing that players have to practice when they're doing that is controlling their aim to stay on target during that defensive movement. And I talk about this a lot in my escape artist guides and my camera break videos, where I'm trying to get players to think about what they are doing both on the offense and the defense side of the game. So we're paying attention to the audio cues of enemies flying in. We are securing those loadouts for both ourselves and the enemy players that want to visit them. It is a tactical move, and it is the fastest way for you to get more kills if you're not doing it. Players come back and they want their loadout. So use it to your advantage and hang out in the area while you're holding down other positions, because you can get free kills upon flyback, but you need to make sure that you are not visible from the air if you're going to use this tactic, because players will see you and then smarter players will not return to the box. Players that use smoke are generally better about getting away. You can break their aim assist, you can conceal your exit, and it is a great way to get out of those fights. If you want to be a little bit more aggressive, you can use stims to both boost your health and your movement speed to get away a little bit faster. Now, once you're been pushed by a team and you're aggressively pushed away from the game, it is up to the remaining teammates to watch that clock and get that clock down, opening boxes, making sure that we are getting the most time shaved off that clock so that they can return as quick as possible. Their teammate is able to do this for them by hiding inside a limehouse in the upstairs, and then there is a decision to be made at this point, is where do you go as a player when you see your team under duress like this? We don't want to go back to that, and we're not sure if we can get anywhere near to help. So pulling back and returning the favor. They are the last person alive right now. They're popping boxes and shaving seconds, but taking fire along the way. So you need to get to cover, and you need to make a decision. If you stay here, they have your dot and they are going to push for you. So here they decide to go over to the ledge and lay down. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you can keep your team in the game as long as you change the position from the last time that the enemy got the ping from that resurgence ping. I probably would have moved over to control, but then again, I probably would have died trying to get to a new POI to open boxes. So I think that this was a great tactic. The whole team's back in. There's still 2 loadout boxes, and now they can make an assessment on whether or not they're going to re-engage or reset. They're getting multiple gunshots over here. I don't think it's a good idea to push those boxes, so they're going to have to reset over here by boat. By the way, I just wanted to point out that today is our 100th video, and for those of you that have watched my content for a long time, comment 100 down in the comments below. You guys are the absolute real legends when it comes to the channel, and I can't thank you guys enough. Opening boxes once again to lower that timer for green as they are rotating around, and taking this long route is really, again, the best way to get away from that team that's continually pushing them. They do have enough money to get a loadout, but they need to get to a buy station. They're rotating over to dock buy and throwing that loadie once again in the protection of the concrete wall so that they have as much protection from any enemy teams from prison. Resurgence is disabled and they have low ground, so it's time to rotate in towards that circle. Think about end of game. What do you need? Your equipment. You need your gas mask. We want to have a self-revive, preferably a muni box, and preferably cash to buy back teammates who are still making rough decisions. So they're defending that loadout, waiting for those players to come back in, and this is where I really started to see traces of better decisions across the second half of this game. Is now we're coming up to that end game, is how do we play as a team? How do we have an improved rotation? And I like the fact that they are rotating towards the high ground. They're giving themselves ample time to get in, but being cautious of the players that they were just rotating away from at control. So we've rotated up to showers, and we've got some gunfire just outside here. Looks like possibly down in the tunnel. I love playing low ground of prison because I just don't like the visibility that the roof has as the circle slides. I feel like that when you're on the bottom floor, you have more control with the rotation. So I love the fact that they're hanging out down here. Gives you a lot more room to rotate and also for your escape routes. That said, we want to keep a close eye on the players upstairs and that mini map and think about how can we control those rotations. I love the fact that they're not panicking against these enemies, these teammates that are dying, and that we are continually maintaining position, reacting to enemies that we see, but not over pushing, holding that line and looking at the invisible gas and looking at the visible gas line and using that as our pinch tactic. When we go outside, we're using the catwalk as cover. That's awesome. Listening to footsteps, but patiently waiting for the player to push us, and using the jump mechanic in the middle of the gunfight to break some of the higher damage profile shots from the enemy. Once the circle slide is there, we have to react to that. I like that they are defending the circle slide from the backside, and this gives you a lot of control as you move with the zone. Is players that are trying to tank their gas mask and hold you on the rotation, you're taking full advantage of their panic because you're outlasting them in the gas. Now, if you notice something very important over here is Green is at the buy station, and that's because he can purchase because the shopping cart is there. Now, during the slide here, the player has a bag of money and they're moving over, and if you notice, the cart disappears. So at that point, they should have been able to know that the weren't able to purchase unless you have a PDS, which is very rare in the game, I believe, right now. So there's no way to make this purchase because the cart is missing from the screen. That means the buy is locked. You can't go to it. It was a good intention and a nice play, but it almost cost them on the rotation because now we're out of gas mask and you can't purchase anything. And this is another situation where you don't have stims. What they do have, though, is Specialist from the last firefight. And that's also telling them that there's an enemy nearby. But we are out of mask and we are still on the brink of circle. Carefully coming up, opening the crate inside the shed, and finding the precision airstreak, which is a great end of the game piece of equipment. And this is my favorite play of the entire game. As we're coming over the crest of the hill, we see the pings, we hear the buy, and then we use the precision airstreak at the buy, but then pinch the opposite side of the building. And this does two things. A, it pushes players off of the buy station and into the building. And B, you also have to go the opposite direction so you don't get knocked. And that was a great first instinct on their part because now you can pinch with your own streak even if you didn't have teammates. The patience here is phenomenal, and holding the left side angle where they might be pushed out of the building by their teammates, also catching the fly in from the buyback and immediately taking out two is absolutely awesome. And then they're ready to defend their teammates' fall on the backside of the steps. I love the decisions that were made over the course of this game. If you guys want a personalized SitRep to go with your gameplay, click the join button and become a member, and I can work with you on things that I think that you can improve, or you could see your gameplay on the channel just like this. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I always say, keep building, keep adapting. SitRep out.